You're listening to Kane, Randy, and Brooke on Scratch the Vinyl.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Scratch the Vinyl. You made it back for another week, and we're glad that you did. And I think that you're going to be glad also. We got, I mean, do they even need an intro at this point? We have Randy, Mr. Chill Wilson, the Godzilla of entertainment in this town. Randy's here. We have Brooke, the Big Red Machine, the red lips. I think she's one of the best ladies I know, aside from my wife, of course. Got to get my points there. But we got Brooke Johnson in the house. And for you, some of you guys out there, you are going to be, your mind is going to be blown. You young guys and gals may not know that there was a legendary venue in this town where they not only served amazing chicken, but they had some of the biggest bands that you can think of out there. I'm talking Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. I'm talking about, yeah, I mean, the list is massive. REM played there, just to name a couple. But let's get our guest in here right now. She is the director and the person behind this wonderful documentary that I'm holding up here. Remember the Drumstick? Let's welcome our guest, Kathy Lohmeyer. Kathy, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on your show.
Man, we could not be more pumped about having you. I personally went and saw this particular documentary at the Ross when it was there, and I did so because I play with a lot of older guys in the bands that I'm in, and these guys are always talking about, man, the Drumstick, this happened at the Drumstick, and I'm like, in in the early '80s, I was like, 5 and below, right? So I had no idea that this stuff had even gone on, but the memory has lived on with these people, and I've heard so many amazing things. But this particular documentary was just like it's gonna blow your mind, Lincoln. You and the older guys, they're just gonna nod their head and go, they're gonna high five each other and go, "Oh yeah, I remember that place." So let's just dig into it right now, Kathy. I mean, could you tell us what's your tie to the Drumstick?
All right. My father owned the Drumstick. It was a chicken restaurant from about 1966. And so it was our family that ran it. My dad, my brothers, my sister, myself, pretty much everyone in the family worked there. And there were 8 kids. And so I was number 7. And yeah, it's just the Drumstick. It was a chicken restaurant. In 1978, I was getting married. We needed a place to have a band and a wedding reception, and we couldn't find any place that would stay open after midnight. And we knew we needed a place that stayed open. So my dad said, well, let's just do it at the Drumstick. And so that was the first time we ever had a band there. Was 1978. We had Little Jimmy Valentine and the Heart Murmurs for my wedding reception. I did not stay married to the guy, but it was sure a good party.
You guys had to have been a fun family. I mean, I could only imagine having a place like that and then what it turned into and everything. Like it had to have been a blast.
Well, I mean, we were a post-World War II family. Dad was in the military. He was the Army, what was he, a mess sergeant in the Army. And they got out of the military. World War II's over and they started having babies.
Wow.
And so 8 kids. It was, it had some highs, very high, and had some lows, very low. But in general, when you have that many people in a family, you just learn to get along. And my dad taught us that in spades. Just, he came from a family of 12 and they lived through the Depression. So, you just get along. You have fun with your siblings as much as you can. Always a party, always a ready-made party because there's always a crowd.
So, Kathy, I'm going to jump in and being one of the older members of our podcast, I grew up in that area during that time. And so I kind of remember what it was like. And, honestly, Lincoln was still pretty small. So anything that was happening, like it seemed like everybody knew everybody. And of course, Drumstick being just kind of this small restaurant right there, not far off of O Street on 48, really is the heart, back then was Central Lincoln. And I mean, everything you could do around there, like Cool Crest was there, the Holiday Skate World was there. I mean,
Buffalo Motel.
Buffalo Motel was next door. That's right. That was just, that,
The Starview Outdoor Theater.
Yep, down on Vine Street. Like everything you did in Lincoln was really within that area. So it's not a surprise to me that there was, a music venue that happened. It's crazy to look back and see how amazing it was to get these unknown bands to come through and just this little restaurant.
Yeah. Well,
And I know your brother was obviously a big part of that. And so obviously I hope you can tell us a little bit more about your brother and how it all got started. Somebody that grew up in that neighborhood and remember going to your place. I got a lot of fond memories of that area and it's crazy how it all developed.
yeah, it was a chicken restaurant, but we served breakfast, hamburgers, french fries, a T-bone steak occasionally. But my dad opened it all night. He was one of the first restaurants in Lincoln to be open all night within the city limits. And so that place would be mobbed when the bars closed on the weekends. And, so there was always a lot of kinetic energy in that building. And then what really happened, I mean, we had this band for my wedding reception. We all had a great time. We stayed open till like 3 or 4 in the morning. We even had some people come in and sit down after the bars closed thinking it was still open for a restaurant. And we're like, no, I'm sorry, this is a private party. You have to go. But here, have a pork sandwich. We're serving them for the reception, So, and we just never really thought about it anymore after that. But tragedy struck our family 2 months later. My mother was killed in a car accident at 56 and O. A semi-tractor trailer ran a red light and broadsided her, and she was basically dead on arrival at the hospital. And I mean, when you have a family of 8 kids, so you got these 10 people, and, mom was the rudder. She was the rudder to our family. And when she died, it was just, my dad went adrift, the restaurant, he wasn't interested. We all, my sister and I and my new husband, we all tried to move in and try to help run the place because he was lost. And it wasn't making enough money to support my dad, me, and my family, and my sister's family. So we thought, well, hey, let's get a beer and wine license. So we got a beer and wine license. And then we thought, this still isn't cutting it. How about, well, we could book bands on the weekends. Maybe that would be fun. Maybe we could get some people in for that. And that's really how it got started. Who was it? Who was the first band? I'm trying to think of who it was. The Clones. The Clones was the first band we ever booked there after Little Jimmy Valentine and the Heart Murmur. And, we played them on a Friday night after the dinner rush was over. And then a Saturday night, they played again after the dinner rush was over. And yeah, we made a little extra money.
Of course, at that time, like, live music was a thing. Like you could go to see a band on a Tuesday, Wednesday night. There was a good music scene for live music back then. And so I don't think you were far off of wanting to do that. Of course, like I said, the area, which a lot of people may not know, was where the McDonald's is now, 5 blocks north off of O Street there on 48th. And
I still remember the address, 547 North 48th.
In the picture, you can see the Kmart sign in the background. Like when you look at that old picture that's on there, which, that gives me fond memories because, I was one of those brat kids that used to hide in the middle parts of the clothing and pop out at people. But we probably did pass by the Drumstick quite a bit. I mean, we lived in Lincoln most of my life. So, man, it's just so awesome hearing all this. And I just think that the listeners are going to eat this up.
Well, I mean, we're just going to tell them about it and hopefully they'll appreciate the history there, because what happened after what happened after we just started booking some local bands, it was no big deal. And we had fun. And the thing is that it was me, my sister, my then husband. We were kind of doing this. We got it started. We even had melodramas there. I don't know if anyone even remembers that, but I found a newspaper article that showed that we had put a melodrama, play on inside that place. It was a big space, we could use, it held maybe a couple hundred people, probably not sitting down everybody, but it could hold that. It was a good space. So anyway, we were just trying to make a little extra money. And then my brother Tim moved back from Maine. And he was the one that went, aha.
He had that big aha moment.
We didn't see it happen, but he felt it. And when Tim got involved in anything, there was going to be some serious energy and a serious party. And Tim was just the next one older to me. He and I and my younger brother Greg were the last three of the family. And so I knew Tim well. Whenever Tim joined a party or a play event at home when we were little kids, he took everything up like 10 notches because of his energy. And when he got involved with the drumstick, I think he was the first one to book Charlie Burton in one of his many variations. God rest his soul. We lost him too recently. But yeah, Tim was the one who reached out. And when Charlie Burton started playing there on a regular basis, I think that's when it really started to kick up a notch, because they had a following. And if anybody has never heard Charlie Burton play, they need to go and find something to listen to, because that man was so talented and so much energy, and that band was so well put together and so tight, and people danced their butts off. They would come in and buy beer, and we still only had a beer and wine license, and we didn't even have kegs. We sold everything out of long neck bottles. And we recycled those bottles, believe it or not. We collected those bottles and recycled them every week. It was just wild. But I think partly because we were a little bit outside of the downtown area, and we weren't on Highway 2, which was little Bow territory, and we weren't out Highway 2, which was the Royal Grove area. We were like in a different area than downtown. So we attracted a different group of kids to come there. And the drinking age, it didn't hurt that the drinking age then was 19. That helped a lot, because those kids just out of high school have a lot of energy, and they freaking love music.
I know. I wish I would have been 19 when that was open. I work at a bar right now, and all the guys are like, oh, that was the coolest place ever. We loved that place. We go, rock there. And my dad went to the University of Nebraska, and we had a short little conversation, and he said, yeah, I remember that place. He goes, it was wild. And I go, tell me more. And he goes, oh, your mom's calling. I got to go. He wasn't going to tell me.
The drumstick and Tim, we pushed the envelope for Lincoln. We did. And, you need a place in town that does that. Nothing bad ever happened there. But yeah, there's some crazy shit happened there. I mean, who's the band? Black Flag. They were going to play on like a Saturday night, and somebody was in that Kmart parking lot next door and committed suicide with a shotgun the night before. And so, I forget the name of the guy that's the Black Flag guy. Who's the top guy?
Henry Rollins.
Yes, him. Yeah. He was supposedly fascinated by this suicide having happened right next door. And he went out, checked out the parking lot, and I don't know, there's stories that he found, some human matter splattered, and he was amazed at that too.
I've heard this story. Yeah, I've heard that story.
It's insane. But
it is.
Good things generally, though. I mean, when you think about it, because that place, let's say it held 200 people. He would put a lot more than that in there because you had all that parking space and we had that entire Kmart parking lot available to us. So, you know how nice it is to just go park and have a fun time and not have to worry about your car and not have to worry about parking meters or where the hell you're going to park. So I think that was part of the draw. It was just away from downtown. It had great parking. It was a big space, and we used that space for a dance floor. So people came there to have fun, to get away, to spend the evening, and to dance their asses off.
So I kind of had a full circle moment, kind of, it happens a lot when we do this show and we meet and talk to new people. But like one of my best friends in junior high and high school, he was the guy that kind of always introduced me to like up and coming bands. And so like, he would always introduce me to, to stuff before they became popular. And he sent me a photo of when him and his brother played at the Drumstick, and he was, I think, 15 years old. And it blows me away today that we're talking about it, but it was a different time back then. And knowing that area, that local people were dying for that kind of punk rock, post-punk rock scene, that nobody else was doing it. And you guys were kind of the cutting edge of that. Whether they realized it or not, you guys were the cutting edge of that punk, post-punk rock scene.
At the time, Randy, you know this, at the time, what was popular? Cover bands.
Cover bands.
Cover bands, cover bands, cover bands. And, they made a lot of money for Bo and Royal Grove because people knew the songs. It's like, oh, that's my favorite song. Now I can dance to that. No problem with that. But we did rock and roll and we did a lot of original music.
Exactly.
And Tim, musical preferences. Okay, what else was happening in the 80s, basically? Well, disco was still out there. And we were not a disco family. I mean, we were not. I mean, like I said, Little Jimmy Valentine and the Heart Murmurs was who we liked to listen to. That's that kind of music. We had grown up on, all right, my dad's in the restaurant business. He had a jukebox. And the jukebox man would cycle out records, 45 records at the time, right? And he would give the old 45s to my dad. And he would bring those 45s home. And we had a record player, and I swear to God, we'd stack like 30 of them. So it would be so high that when they dropped, the needle couldn't cross over the top of them. And we probably ruined a lot of records that way.
Oh, see, I'm old enough to remember that. So I try to tell people about 45s and they look at me like, what are you talking about? Like, they were just smaller discs. You turn them over. There was a B-side and there was 2 songs. I know. And I remember jukeboxes like that. Yes.
So we grew up listening to Elvis and Chuck Berry and, Bobby Goldsboro and, Perry Como and, these crazy one hit wonders. I can't even think. Johnny Tremaine of old London town, shit like that. Theme songs from movies at the time. That's what we grew up on. And so it had to have a certain energy, and we definitely had to have some dancing in there, because we as kids would dance and have fun and that kind of stuff. You would entertain yourself with a big family like that. TV, there was 3 channels and, you watched it at night. You didn't watch it during day because all you had was soap operas. So we played and danced. And oh my God, when the Beatles came out, we dressed up like the Beatles. We pretended we were the Beatles. There's a photograph somewhere in our family album of us pretending like we had like a big hammock that we used as a drum and had pretend microphones and the whole 9 yards. So we loved music and we loved vibrant music and not disco. So what else are you going to do? Rock and punk was what was popular at the time. And we really loved it. That was our style of music. But the Drumstick didn't just play punk. I think that was the other thing that was so amazing about the place was we played whatever we thought we liked, basically what Tim liked, what Diane liked, my sister Diane. I can't leave her out because Diane was the heart and soul of our family after our mother died. And she was the heart and soul and the business operator of the Drumstick. Tim was the front guy, the party guy. Diane was the one that did the books and kept the place running and kept the restaurant running as long as possible. We loved the music. And so it had to have that vibrant energy in order to attract us. And so Charlie Burton had that. Charlie Burton had that vibrant energy, and the people came out to dance. And because we were a big family, and I had 4 brothers, Mike, Pat, Mark, and Tim. They were all kind of spaced out really evenly. Tim and Mark and Pat knew people all over town. So we had our own little circle of friends, and they kind of helped build this core group of patrons. And then the word got out, and then people just started coming more and more. And then we booked Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. And I'll tell you how that happened. My husband at the time was working at UNL had a programs council, and they had student body members that were on the programs council. And I remember that year they had booked 999 as a concert. And that was a fabulous show. And they had it, I think, in the ballroom there in the student union. And so he had connections to these booking agencies. And we were just like going, this is a big space because it's a bigger space than the Zoo Bar. And we love the Zoo Bar, loved that place. But the dance floor was really, really small, really small. And you could just never get very many people out there. And lots of people wanted to dance, but they just couldn't because the place was little. So we said, well, hey, what the hell? Why don't we think about, let's try to get somebody famous. Because how much would it cost? How many people can we put in here? How much can we charge? Because we can get the door to cover the band cost. And then the money you make is off the beer and whatever you sell. And by this time, I think we gotten a liquor license, a full liquor license. And so after he booked her, then my family had a big falling out. My husband did not mix with my people, my relatives. And I was just, maybe 2 or 3 years married. So that was when we faded out of the drumstick scene, was when Joan Jett was just getting ready to play there. But we helped book her. And when Joan Jett played there, that was when it all went up another notch, if you get my drift. Because I did the interview. It's in the documentary. We did the interview for the lead guitarist for Joan Jett. Who is it? Who I interviewed. God, I'm so embarrassed. I'll think of it. But anyway, we interviewed with him, and he said, you just got to see it in the movie. His story is so funny, and I don't want to steal anything from the movie in case somebody wants to see it. But he was just shocked. They were shocked they were playing a chicken restaurant. But he said he remembered that show because there were people outside the big picture windows just staring and watching. And the place was packed. And the energy in it was just beyond belief. Another thing about the drumstick, this organic thing that happened, was that we just built a stage. All right. It wasn't a stage. It was a riser. It was maybe 24 inches, 30 inches off the ground. And that was it. And so these band members are up maybe 30 inches and you're standing right beside them, right in front of them, right? You can watch them do their fingering on the guitars. I mean, it was an experience so real and so visceral that anybody who went to the drumstick fell in love with it if they loved music.
Well, yeah, you could when you go to a show, you get close, but you don't get, it reminds me of like when I would go to Knickerbockers when I was younger, right? Like you were right up there up against them, and basically the vocalist is spitting all over you. I mean, you're catching sweat, you're singing into the microphone with them. So I can only imagine like the energy in that room.
Keith Richards wrote a biography about himself. If you ever have a chance to read it, do. And in it, he describes that every night before they get on stage, he says it's like strapping yourself onto a rocket ship, and you just go out there and you see where that rocket's going to take you. And you know the Rolling Stones music, how intense it is and fun and energetic and just pounds you and makes you want to move and you never forget it. That's the rocket ship ride that you get to take when you experience live music. And if you have never, all these young people with their little, earbuds and the streaming, and I love that. I think it's a great way to experience it. But man, you got to experience it live. You just have to. It becomes an experience that will never happen again. They're playing that song. They played it a million times, but it will never happen again exactly the same way as it happened in that room. And you get a sense of community having experienced it with other people in a live stage. And to have them so close rather than up on a very high stage, like the Bourbon Theater, right? They have kind of that high stage experience, which is excellent. I've seen a couple bands there that I really, really loved. And it was just a little bit less wonderful when you have to stare up in the air to see them.
Listen, I remember. So I was 13, and that's about when my mom started letting me go see live music. I mean, so I remember when Joan Jett played. That's like 81, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember my friends talking about. Of course, I didn't get to go, but I remember people talking about that, and because like that's when Joan Jett was really blowing up with "I Love Rock and Roll" and like our junior high dances. I mean, that's what we're dancing to. And to hear that she was in town, like you just didn't hear of things like that. And looking back, it's just so crazy that this little
New at the time. Super.
Yeah.
Because the booking agency didn't know we weren't a club. They just said, "You want a player? You got the money? Booked. We can hear she's coming through." And the beautiful thing about the location of Lincoln, and I think this is partly why Lincoln is still a good music town, a live music town. I hope that kids are still going to see them, but that's another story. But the location of Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska, in the middle of the country, bands still tour. And with the days of streaming and Spotify and Pandora, they don't make much money off of this. They used to make a lot more money off radio play, but they make hardly anything off these streaming downloads. And so they are touring and touring and touring because that's how they got to make their bucks. They almost depend on their merchandise that they sell anymore, more so than their own music, which is insane and crazy and another story altogether. But the location of Lincoln is such that, people are going coast to coast or north, south, Chicago to San Antonio or New York to LA. This is a great place to stop in the middle of the week while you're trying to get to your weekend gig and play a gig.
We just had a Johnny Paycheck. We were at my bar. It was his son, but I got a phone call and they're like, "Hey, this is Johnny Paycheck's son. Can we play there tonight? Because we're on our way to a big gig." And I was like, "I'm calling Kane." And it was so cool because of the location. It happens. And you get those, it's like Lawrence, Kansas. Sometimes you get it's a crazy, you might be at some bar and here comes Nirvana, like Lincoln's a good location though. It's really, really good.
And at the time, and remember, we said this earlier, at the time, bars were not playing original music bands. And these original music bands like Joan Jett were looking for places to play, to be heard, because if they could get their music out to the crowd, then the crowd would request them off the radio station. And then, that stuff would just, the dominoes would fall, so to speak. So,
Well, a lot of those bands just needed to get food and gas money to get to the next stop.
oh, ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? It is that was another thing. The short time that I was involved in the Drumstick, it was such a hard life. This touring as a band member, you have to just love music to do this for a living because it is, on the road all the time, good hotels, shitty hotels, lousy food, your bus or your van breaks down. Oh my gosh, all the trials and tribulations. It's like a traveling troubadour from the back, back in the Middle Ages, right? The guys that just walked around and sang from town to town for their supper, basically.
Those guys were probably in heaven when you offered them, fried chicken.
Yes, yes. And I have a funny story. So we have a restaurant, and we fed all these guys, and that was part of the allure and part of their pay. A bucket of chicken at the end of the night, beer and donuts. We laughed about that a lot. But my sister said it was one of the Sex Pistols. Well, they were the professionals, and there were two of the Sex Pistols in that group, and they were it was an English band, and so she's got this full restaurant at this guy's disposal, and she goes, "Are you hungry? You want something to eat?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm really hungry." She goes, "Well, what would you like?" He goes, "I know this is going to sound really crazy, but what I'd really like is some beans and toast." The English eat those canned pork and Van Camp's pork and beans. They eat those things on toast, and that is like their mac and cheese comfort food. And that's all he wanted. And of course, she just sent someone across the Kmart parking lot into Kmart, bought a can of pork and beans, brought it back, and made this guy toast and beans because that's what he wanted, a little comfort food.
His poor bandmates, as they go on to the next town. Trust me, I've been in plenty of vans going from town to town, and we never had beans on the menu.
Well, it was an English staple, so maybe that's just was good for their digestion.
I love this story. It reminds me of reminds me of when me and the band we would take any gig we could, and we did a show up clear north, no by O'Neill or whatever, like super north in Nebraska, and we did a bowling alley show, and it was but we had no idea that we were gonna have to call out the bingo scores the whole night while they're having this big bingo thing. And then we were announcing sausages in the middle. So part of our pay was kind of like you guys was getting this massive amount of sausage and buns on the way out. It was incredible. So I can only imagine, I would love for a gig to be where they're yeah, and we'll also give you all the fried chicken that you can stand.
Oh yeah. It was. Yeah. And what can you say? It was never supposed to happen.
Yeah.
We talk about that in the documentary a lot. This was a fluke. We had a life as restaurateurs of a mom and pop restaurant, which, at that time they were fading out too. Mom and pops were fading because, you can't compete with Bojangles Chicken when they've got TV advertisements all over the place and you don't have anything except your billboard out in front of the street you're on. So it was just, it was just a fluke. We just thought, well, we'll just book a few bands every now and then just to kind of supplement our incomes. And Tim got a hold of it. And before you knew it, he was booking bands 7 nights a week. And he loved local bands. He loved young kids who wanted to play. In fact, I think Matthew Sweet, you know who he is?
Oh, yeah.
He played the drumstick as a young kid. I don't know which band he was with, but he got some of his start there at the drumstick. And a lot of people who I've talked to said that the drumstick changed their lives. In the interview, you'll hear one gentleman, Al Chambers, talk about that. He's like, I was from York, Nebraska. I would drive from York, Nebraska to see a band in Lincoln, Nebraska at the drumstick. And it changed my way of thinking about music. And he is a fanatic music fan. I mean, he's a retired UPS driver, but he's like a roadie now at the Lead Center that helps set up shows and stuff like that. So, if for people who love music, they had a place to go. For people who didn't fit the cookie cutter, cover tune, mainstream cliques that were in Lincoln, they had a place to go to experience something else, something different, something original.
All right, this is the halfway point. This is a long episode, so I don't want to waste the juice. So not that I don't love running all the ads and doing all the local roundup and everything, but I think we're just going to run that Elegant Sasquatch ad, and then we'll mention some of our sponsors, and we'll quickly get back to it with our guest from the Remember the Drumstick documentary, director Kathy Lohmeyer. Welcome to the Late Late Show with your host, Squatch.
Welcome to the show, everybody. We have a controversial guest tonight. He claims to have the world's smelliest beard and doesn't plan to do anything about it in the foreseeable future. Let's bring him on right now. He wants to be brought on by what he goes by on his socials, Toxic Beard 87.
Hey, calm down. Don't hate the smells if it sells.
Hello, my toxic friend. Let me ask you something. With brands like the Elegant Sasquatch Beard Company, why do you choose to smell like a rotten egg on Easter?
It all started when I was 16 years old. My beard was growing like a forest full of pine trees, and it was time for me to find a delicious scent to make Cindy Jo fall in love with me. I found a beard oil in a store, and I thought for sure she was going to be mine. I caked it on, and I was so proud of the way I smelled and how I looked. As soon as I saw Cindy Jo, I went running over to her, but instead of her embracing me and taking me in, she told me to go away and told me I smelled terrible. It was the worst day of my life. It was right then that I vowed that I would never put another product in my beard again. And so here I am, Toxic Beard Guy 87, and I'm not going anywhere.
Well, if I'd gone through that, it'd been tough for me to show my face again, too. But luckily, there's companies like the Elegant Sasquatch Beard Company that have multiple products that'll have girls like Cindy Jo melting in the palm of your hand.
Sasquatch, do you really think that there's a product for me?
Yes, my friend. There are beard balms, beard oils, beard butters, and beard washes that will make your whiskers the talk of the town. You'll be smelling like a dozen roses, and you'll be looking the best you've ever looked.
I would give anything to get Cindy Jo to talk to me just once again. Where can I get this amazing product?
Head on over to elegantsasquatchco.etsy.com and find yourself getting lost in the amount of items that they have to offer, including beard boxes as well, with a full line of some of their favorite products.
There's only one thing left to do. I'm going to go over to Etsy right now, and I'm going to buy as much product as I can, and I'm going to find Cindy Jo, and I'm going to win her over. Thanks again, Squatch.
You heard it here, folks. We changed his mind. Next on the show, we'll have a doll with an eating disorder. Then we'll have squirrels riding skateboards. Till then, head on over to Etsy right now. Tell them that the Scratch the Vinyl podcast sent you.
Gotta love those ads by the Elegant Sasquatch. Good times. Now let's talk about some of our sponsors quickly here. How could we not mention Gray's Keg? Also, the TAM. We have Kelly's Pub. New one, Backtrack Records. Get your vinyl there. We have Roots Music Shop here in Lincoln. I can't think of a better place, an ambassador, aside from Backtrack Records, to kind of be the liaison to the world that we're kind of creating with this podcast. Also, we have Matson's Bowling and Billiards. They're doing Rock and Bowl every week. And then we have American Senior Benefits with Jason Dugash. Get a hold of them for any of your senior needs when it comes to looking into your benefits that you have. And now let's get back to our episode with Kathy Lohmeyer.
So, Kathy, let's talk a little bit about what motivated you to finally do the documentary when you did.
I lived away from Lincoln for about 22 years. And in 2002, I moved back to Lincoln. And the Drumstick closed in 1987. And I moved back to Lincoln in 2002. And I can't tell you how many times I would be at the gas station or a grocery store or someplace where someone would, like the dry cleaners. What's your name? So I can put your name on the ticket. My name's Kathy Lohmeyer. Lohmeyer, were you part of that Lohmeyer group that ran the drumstick? I mean, I'm telling you, this happened all the time. They just kept not, tapping me on my shoulder, hearing my last name and going, are you one of those Are you one of those Lohmeyers? And so I was thinking, oh my God, the drumstick was really an amazing place that people still talk about. How many years later is that? 13, 15 years later, 2002. So I just was like, oh, that's so cool. And then I got it in my head and we had like a little drumstick reunion at Knickerbocker's. And I can't remember what year that year was, but it was like, 2007, maybe 2006. And we cooked the fried chicken and we had hash browns and Texas toast, and Knickerbockers let us serve it there. And we had Charlie Burton play and Mercy Rule play, and some young kid from the School of Rock played. And people came out for that. All these people came out. A lot of them were people who knew us as a family, school friends, high school friends from the days of yore. But a lot of them were people that just remembered the drumstick. And some of these people were our old food customers, right? So I just kept saying to myself, we're all getting older. I'm going to be 69. We got to get these stories recorded because they'll be gone. There is nothing left of the drumstick building itself. In 87, we closed, and I don't know how much time passed, but they tore the whole building down and built that McDonald's, and you said that. So there's literally nothing physical left to show anybody that it ever existed. The only thing that's left are these stories.
We were looking for like videos, or just pictures, and Randy had found one. And I mean, just those little bits, there's not a lot there. It's almost like you want to say, hey, if anybody has anything, send it to me, because it's very few. And I haven't been to Lee's Chicken for like 20 years. And my fiance and his parents went there, and I found that sitting there. This was on Sunday, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how serendipitous is this? Like a tornado could even take that one out. But you guys are recognized all over the place in a sense, pretty cool.
That is kind of, my nephew helps run the Lee's Chicken. So I said, we got the Nebraska Performing Arts Hall of Fame award induction. And I'm going, well, what am I going to do with this? I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So I said to my nephew, I said, you have a display case out there at Lee's? Can I put up a display in that display case so at least people will see this stuff? And he said, absolutely. So that's how that got there. But yeah, it's like there's no place to put this. There's no drumstick museum. And the Nebraska Performing Arts Hall of Fame doesn't have a museum yet. Hopefully they will someday.
They have a quilt museum. We need a drumstick museum. Come on now, Lincoln. What are you doing?
We tried. My brother Pat bought a building, but it just didn't work out. It was right around the 2008, 2009 crash, Ola. And so, yeah, it just didn't work out. And he actually, supposedly, my brother Pat has a storage unit somewhere in Lincoln with some old Nebraska memorabilia stuff. When we did the Knickerbockers thing, he actually dragged out a table, 4 chairs, and one of the old cowboy chandeliers that we had from the drumstick, and he put them in Knickerbockers. And we had that in the front window at that night of that reunion. But yeah, that's how the documentary got started, was we got to record these stories. And I had a friend, Ginger Tyson, who she and I went to high school with and had a lot of fun together when we were young. She was living in town at the time. She's from the movie industry. And I said, what do you think? Would this be a decent subject? And she said, absolutely. And she knew someone who was going to help us get some video, because I didn't know anything about videotaping. I didn't know anything about making a movie. And what's that guy's name? Elward. Can't think of his first name. And he set up the equipment for us. And we did our first interview with Charlie Burton. And he helped do the video and the sound. And there, I had my first videotape for the of interviews. And then I just started calling people and saying, "Hey, what do you think? You were there. You're a band member. You want to talk about this?" Yeah, everybody said yes. Old former employees, my family members, band members. We got as many people as we could to just talk about what they remembered. And then I had this pile of videotape, and I didn't know what to do with that either. And the Nebraska Independent Film Project came out and said, "Hey, we can help you with that. We know some people that can do editing." And so I went, "Please introduce me." They introduced me to Sharonda Harris Marshall, who works out of Omaha, and she put the documentary together. And poof, now it's a documentary. I mean, we had very rudimentary recording devices. I basically used handheld digital camera for a lot of the interviews and a little lapel mic. So some of the footage wasn't as good as other parts of it, but we got it done.
Well, I mean, you learned a lot. That was the thing that I found. I Facebook stalked you and all this. Things you're supposed to do as a producer and as a host. And I saw like some of the things you guys had said as you were in the process, like from the past, like you had issues with sound and all this stuff, and you were just learning what to do, right? Like, so like what were some of the challenges that you had aside from learning to do an entire documentary? Like, what were some of the major challenges for you?
Making a film, I have just so much more respect for people who make films for a living, because it is not easy. There are so many details, like your setting, your backdrop, your lighting, the sound. Does a plane fly by in the middle of this thing? Does your refrigerator hum in the middle of this thing? It's to get that pristine quality that people expect on the big screen is not easy. It takes a lot of technical help. And we basically had a crew of like 4 people. And so anytime you watch a documentary now, you just look at how many people were involved in making that. And we did it on a shoestring budget. I think I made the whole thing for like $30,000.
That's unbelievable.
And nobody got paid for it. It was all labor of love stuff.
That is amazing. It's kind of like here where I keep bleeping out or like going out, and it's a lot of work to get the computer. Like I have to get my son all the time. I'm like, how do you do this? And, and he has a huge explanation, and I'm like, oh, never mind. I'm just going to keep pressing buttons. But it does take a lot of work, not just a documentary, owning a bar that has bands. And I mean, it is just constantly different and exciting, but you learn a lot. And this documentary is like, it needs to be in like a gold case somewhere, and and have it displayed for Lincoln. And I don't know if we mentioned, where can we get this DVD, or can we find it anywhere? Because I got to watch it with Kane and Randy. I mean, if people want to get it, where can we get it?
Well, we have a website called www.rememberthedrumstick.com. So remember the drumstick, one big long phrase. And if you go, I mean, it's a foundation. I created a foundation so that people could donate money to help me make the documentary. So it's a full 501c3. And so people donated the money, and that's kind of how we got this whole thing made, with donations and personal finances and stuff like that. But then it's like, we did not, this is so funny in its own way, but it's just, timing is everything, baby. If you in the entertainment business or anything you're doing as a living, luck and timing is everything. So we finished the documentary right as COVID was ending, and we started submitting it to film festivals. Film festivals is where you get picked up if you're shown at a film festival, a distributor might see it and decide they want to take it around the country. And we thought it was worthy of that. Maybe not, maybe some, art house type theaters. Well, the first place we submitted our documentary was the Big Sky Festival in Montana. And we were told we didn't make the cut. And then we were told there were 10,000 entries that year. So during COVID, everybody made a documentary. So everywhere we went that year, we were up against thousands and thousands of other people who had made documentaries. And quite honestly, they were probably a little bit more professional, or maybe they had a little name recognition in who they are as far as directors and producers go. So we did not make it into very many festivals, and we only had so much budget because you have to spend money to, say, I want to try to be in your festival. You got to give them money to have them watch your video or your DVD these days. So anyway, I mean, that's just timing is everything. And our timing on the film festival circuit was not good. So we didn't get picked up. And so it's like, okay, now what do I do? Well, I put it on the website. And I didn't want to sell it because when you're a nonprofit and you sell stuff, then you get involved with income and, you're a 501c3, you're not supposed to be making any profit. And I'm not that good at running a foundation. So basically, I just say, if you make a donation, you can watch the video streaming. If you make a donation on the website, rememberthedrumstick.com, then you will be sent a thank you note. And in that thank you note, you will get the link to it and the password to see it on a streaming platform. And then if you want, you can also ask for it in DVD form. I didn't want to print a bunch of DVDs because there's a lot of people that don't watch them anymore. So I just print as needed. And when people order them, we get them out to you pretty darn fast. But I don't have a stockpile. I did not want a stockpile of DVDs in my garage. Let's put it that way.
I think we need to have a watch party. I'm going to call that McDonald's, and we're going to park in the parking lot, and I'm going to get a big screen, and we're going to go watch the documentary. I think we'd have a lot of people there.
If I lived in Lincoln, I would on certain anniversaries, I'd be out in front of there with a banner like the drumstick was here. The drumstick was here. And then I thought I should go talk to the manager of that McDonald's and have them put a plaque in one of their bathrooms or something like that,
I bet you could call the Chili Peppers and they'd come and help you out a little bit.
The Chili Peppers played here in like 2017 or something like that. Do you remember?
Mm-hmm.
They did a show.
Yeah.
I was there. I just about started crying when they did that. But they did a shout out for the drumstick because I had tried to get a hold of them. I had, and this is the thing. I had tried desperately to get a hold of people who were in those big bands. But, oh my God, they have such gatekeepers these days.
Yep.
You try to get a hold of them and you got to go through the gatekeeper. And then they're like, well, you got 10 grand because they're not going to talk to you for less than 10 grand. And it's just so sad because I think that some of them might have been interested in talking to us if they had known I was trying, but I couldn't get a hold of them. I couldn't get to them directly to talk to them.
That's when you needed your poster. I am her. I am the documentary. Yes, I worked there. I would have went with you.
Well, Brooke, you said it right. There was, during that time, it isn't like it is today where everybody had phones that could have like recorded shows. Like if there was a lot of video of like some of those bands back in that day, you might have would have got somewhere just because you would have had that visual. So how about, can you tell us like, how did you dig up all the background and all the show posters and like really get behind who had played there?
Well, I did not start the Friends of the Drumstick Facebook page. I didn't start the it's a group, the Facebook group. I didn't start that. Someone else started it. And it was so cool. I was like, well, here you go. These people still, they made a Facebook group for this thing. And that was like in 2008 or 2009 when that got put together. And people started posting those old flyers that they had. They'd take a photograph, get it in a, a JPEG format and upload it into Facebook. That's where a lot of those posters and that archival pictures came from for that you'll see in the documentary. And then there were people who have saved this stuff. I had a friend who waitressed at the Drumstick, and she gave me a poster of Joan Jett that Joan Jett had autographed, but she had it decoupage. Do you remember decoupage? She put it on a piece of wood and she put, shellac all over it
and then there was bedazzle. Let's not do that, but I like that one.
And so I've got this poster of Joan Jett on a big, huge piece of wood, decoupage but it's her autograph that she gave when she played the drumstick to the waitress that worked that night. Yeah. It's just, life, here's the truth. Life in the fast lane is much more complicated, but you don't have to be in that fast lane. You don't have to be there. Everybody wants to be rich and famous. Well, how are you going to be rich and famous? I don't know. I just want to be rich and famous. They don't think about what you have to do to get there. And a lot of people never go to that top tier, that A list. And those people are every bit as talented, every bit as energetic and inspiring in terms of their music. And that's, part of the story I want the Drumstick to tell young people is that you don't have to, have all the trappings like you're one of those A-list people. You don't have to pretend to be anything or anybody than who you are. And you can have an absolute riot, a blast. You can build friendships and meet other professionals in your area and be a B-list. There's nothing wrong with being on the B-list. You know what I mean?
Well, this kind of coronated at the same time of when kind of MTV came about too. Because looking at this list of bands that played at the Drumstick, it literally wasn't long after that they were putting videos on MTV. REM, Modern English, the Chili Peppers, 10,000 Maniacs.
Yes.
This list is long.
Yes. We have as a family, we have talked about that, of how MTV was just a brand new thing. And all they did was music videos, nothing else. Maybe a little advertising as things went on, but it was music videos. And Al Chambers, who I mentioned, who's in the documentary, he said, yeah, you'd see him at the Drumstick, and then in a week or two, you'd see their video, and you'd have just had beers with them. You'd sat around and shot the shit with them at the table in the Drumstick. So I think that's what I wanted to make this documentary, obviously, to save the stories, because it's historically significant for the music history of Lincoln, Nebraska. And it's historically significant in a national way because of how many of those, alt-rock bands that are now icons of music got their start in the 80s, and they were on the tour that ran them through the Drumstick. So I want people to understand that, but I just also want them to see the possibilities. There was a place here in town also called the Brickyard. Now, I never went there, but it was another joint. It was just a joint where kids got together and they played music and they had fun, and they didn't care if it wasn't, spiffed up the way, certain people would want it to be in order to have it be cool enough to go there. It was just a joint, a building. And it was downtown. Yeah, you showed up, made your own damn fun, and you didn't give a crap what everybody else thought. And there's
hole in the wall. They're the best. And that, yeah.
It's so much more real. I'm trying to think of this one quote. I've been having so many senior moments today.
I'm right there with you. I can't even remember my middle name right now.
Oh, I'm really not good with details. That's why you should have more of these people that know these stories come on. Because I have a nephew, Dennis Can, the guy who runs the Lee's Chicken Restaurant. He's got one of those brains that remembers dates, places, times, names, what they ate, all of that. So
That's what these two are for. They can remember everything. I'm like, oh, I don't know what's going on. And then,
Like I said, I have to give a big shout out to Mike Simrad because
yes,
I literally sat down with Mike for like 3 hours a couple weeks ago, and he reminded me and jogged my memory of so many things about the Brickyard and the Drumstick and Little Bows, just things that I knew about, but it's been so long. And of course, Kathy, I have to tell you, my cousin Don Adams, DA, was inducted into the Hall of Fame the same time you were, and he just recently passed away. And so that was kind of what promoted, me talking to Mike, because they did a really nice benefit at the Rococo, and a lot of those artists that kind of remember all that scene back then came out and performed, and it was just amazing. But what was crazy was talking to those guys about that music scene back in the 80s like that. It just drew me in. And then Kane had talked to me about, already doing an interview with you. And it was just another full circle moment of just, again, so many people that have stories and remember the Drumstick and just remember that time frame of music being so awesome. Like you said, just places to go to dance and just rock out, and like everybody was welcome there. Like everybody was there.
Randy, you should post your picture on the Facebook page that they have. And we get more people out there that are listening. Like, let's post some stuff. I know somebody had something to take a picture, or, there has to be a lot more out there. I think we should get that up there.
Oh, I guarantee we're going to help Kathy find even more stories. And I did check out the Friends of the Drumstick page, and yeah, just the stuff I saw in there that's been posted recently is crazy. Is a lot of stuff that we've been talking about on the show, like unfortunately the passing of Jeff Runnings. For Against played at the Drumstick, so we saw that on the posters. It was just like, again, a moment in time where we're going through this history of Lincoln music, and these things keep popping up. And so honestly, Kathy, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to talk to you and to talk about the Drumstick and just kind of keeping this story alive, really.
yeah, I mean, let this only be the beginning of these conversations. There's so much to tell. I mean, I get overwhelmed with how much there is to talk about, and it's really fun to talk about it because, like you said, when you're talking to others, it sparks memories. It sparks things that you remember from the past that you wouldn't have remembered if you hadn't had that conversation. And when we were doing the interviewing for the documentary, we did some taping for my family members at my sister's house, who also passed away just last year. My sister, she died in July of last year. So all her stories are gone now. I got as many as I could on tape, but anything else she forgot to tell me that day, they're gone unless she told it to somebody else. And in fact, that day, after I was done taping her, she said to me, "Oh my God, I can think of so many more stories to tell you right now, right this minute, but the tape's off. We're done." And that's what happens. That's why you gotta gather these stories and remember them. And if you have to, write them down. But while I was taping, then she and my brothers, I have my brother Pat and my brother Mark and a friend of the family, were out in the backyard while we were taping somebody else in the house. And they were having a conversation, and they came in and went, "Oh my God, Kathy, you should have been taping that. You should have been taping that conversation," because there's just something just so kinetically beautiful about getting together with people and remembering fond moments or crazy events, because everybody remembers it a little differently. my favorite story is the one you'll hear in the documentary about X and John Doe. There was an event. I don't want to, if someone wants to watch the movie, I don't want to tell them the whole thing. But there was an event with John Doe at the Drumstick with when the band X played there. And I have heard that story at least a dozen times, and has told me that story a little differently. It's like everybody has their own little version of what happened.
It's kind of like when you see a picture and you were there, but you don't really remember it, but you're just looking at the picture going, oh, yeah. But really, you're kind of like, it's a different version for everybody. Now, speaking of memories, though, so I know the documentary has so many cool memories of all of this stuff, but I want to know like something that's not on the documentary, and your whole family was involved in this. Do you have a specific moment or memory with your whole family where you just remember that moment of like you're in awe of, just look what we have?
Well, you're a kid. You don't think of it like that, Looking back, I have lots of those memories. In fact, like I said, the Drumstick was a restaurant. So when we were just a restaurant, every year my dad would have a holiday party for the help. And we would cook a bunch of food. And before we had a liquor license, he'd bring some beer in, and we'd cook a bunch of food, give out presents, have a good time. And then the old folks would go home because, the restaurant business, Brooke, you must know this. The restaurant business is a lot of young people do it just to make a buck or two, while they're going through college or whatever. But at that time, it was a lot of high school kids. And so mom and dad would go home, and all of us kids and our friends and the help would stay, and dad would turn the jukebox on free play. So we would have our own little party at the Drumstick with just playing jukebox songs till it got late. We don't know how long it would go on, but we had so much fun. Because
sometimes those are the best moments of just that, your holiday Christmas party. And it's just you guys saying, we're together. We get to do this. I mean, I could tell you all kinds of stories about Randy's been to a few of ours. Kane, you should come to one of our holiday parties, and you're invited as well. We're all going to have a holiday party and eat chicken.
Well, the story isn't a whole lot different than my parties at my restaurant for my people. Like those are the memories that I have. Past employees that will come up to me later, or people that come up to me later and just thank me for that time period. And it blows me away what they remember. And because you all become a family if you're in the service industry, and you guys know what it means to be in the fire on a busy day, or working the grill line, or just
everybody should have to work in a restaurant.
Everybody.
I agree 1,000%. I school people. I'm like, don't you talk to them like that. Pick up your glass. Do not put that on the floor. You ask for another beer and say, please, 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 please. Oh, yeah, there's so many.
And no joke, Kathy, my restaurant was literally down the street from where the Drumstick was. And you know what? And here's what I could tell you. Northeast Lincoln, where that area was, isn't a whole lot different. The people in that area are still there, still the same. They're still loyal. And if you give them a reason to come out, and you give the good service, they will show up. And I guarantee that's part of why you guys had so much success with what you were doing, even if times were tough. But your loyal neighborhood people will still always support you if you're trying to do everything else right.
And Kathy, I guarantee people, if you came to some of those bars around there, you would be signing autographs, like, and like you'd have to sign chests, like guys' chests. And oh yeah, you'd be like, oh, you need to come around and we'll have a big party. Well, you're famous.
We can arrange that. In fact, in keeping with that holiday spirit, that I have on November 15th, I do have a plan to do an event here in Lincoln. I rented the Antelope Enclosed Shelter, which is on the east side of that big playground. It's got a nice big parking area, and then it's got the the Antelope Pavilion's not far away, so there's plenty of parking. And I'm going to do some kind of holiday. I'm going to call it something like Remember the Drumstick, hopefully annual. I'll try to do it every year. The Remember the Drumstick annual winter holiday kickoff.
Absolutely.
That would be so
Yeah.
much fun. Oh my God, you have lights. I'll help decorate. We could have like some reindeer. I don't know. We'll do something fun.
For Thanksgiving, the forgotten holiday, of course.
Oh yeah, that's
It would just be, I'm hoping to book a few bands. I'm hoping to get someone that used to play the drumstick. I know Get Smart is still playing. I'm thinking I might try to ask them. And then I have a friend who does bluegrass, Kelly McGovern. I don't know if you guys know him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And the
I went to
McGovern
high
string
school.
band, right?
Pardon?
The McGovern string band.
Yes.
Yep.
I have connections to him, obviously. So what I want to do is have like an event where kids can come and not have it really cost anything. I want it to be a donation event. If you have money, great. If you don't worry about it. Come anyway. And just play music. They just have a concrete floor in that enclosed shelter. And I didn't want to risk doing anything outdoors in November in Nebraska. So so they'll just be set up on the floor so kids can be right up next to them. I want young people to see, hear, and feel the energy of live music again as much as possible. And so, I'm only at the rudimentary planning stages. So I'd love to have you guys' input or talk to you more about it. But
oh, we will definitely. We'll put this all over the place.
Yeah.
This is 100%. Yes.
Yeah, we definitely could help you reconnect with bands that I think once they hear this episode, I won't be seriously, I won't be surprised we get a lot of feedback on more stories and help add to that page. But yeah, you just keep us posted on those dates, and there's no doubt in my mind we'd love to help you promote that and get people that want to be part of Remember the Drumstick and check that out.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely booked November the 15th. That's a Saturday. And there's no Nebraska football game that day.
That's key. You've learned over the years. That's key. You don't get married. You don't do anything on those days.
No.
It's all right. Kane's an Iowa Hawkeye fan, so he don't care either way.
Well, yeah, I'm happy with it no matter what. You're not supposed to let the cat out of the, but now I'm going to get like, people are going to throw rocks at my house and eggs.
I'm sorry, Kane. I'm sorry.
I love me some Nebraska football. Don't get me wrong. Tim loved it. Diane, Ev, a whole family. We're lovers of Nebraska football. So that's why I had to find the Saturday. I knew there would be at least one Saturday in November that there was not a football game. So that's why I booked it already in March. So I got that nailed down. And then also, if you talk to people and they do have stories, there is a place on the website, rememberthedrumstick.com, where they can put their stories. They just have to type it in. I mean, tell them not to worry about their grammar or whatever, because I can look at it, and if I need to edit it a little bit to get it smaller, or if they forgot to put an S at the end of a word, I can fix all that for them. Just put the stories in that website. Don't necessarily put any more stories on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
Because Facebook owns Friends of the Drumstick. I don't own Friends of the Drumstick, and I hate that they own it, but they do. And they own all your pictures, any photo, anything you put on Facebook, it's theirs as well as yours. So, I mean, it's going to be a great, someday in the future, Facebook will be like the Library of Alexandria with all this data and information and first primary resources and shit like that. But for my purposes, I really wish people would put more stories, and you can upload photos to the website. You can put your stories in there. And I would love to see that get some more traction. I have some links to pages that talk about the music scene here in Lincoln. I mean, they're not maybe the best links, but they're the ones that I could find. So, I have complete control over that. We can do whatever we want with that. Facebook, I don't have as much control over.
As usual, time has flown by like no other. And we know your time is valuable, Kathy, and we probably can't say enough how much we appreciate you coming on today. And I hope, because honestly, I know there's so much more we probably wanted to get into today. So if you will accept our open invitation to come back again, and as this stuff progresses, and November 15th, we'd love to have you probably back on and talk more about the music and the stories. But again, from all of us, man, we really appreciate your time and getting that story out.
I would love to come back on the show. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about it. And Eric Amble was the lead guitar player of the Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. I'm so sorry, Eric. I couldn't remember it earlier. I want you to listen to this podcast, Eric. I'm so sorry. But yes, I would be more than happy to do that. In fact, you should, because this is part of history being preserved, having these conversations. And like I said, my sister and her stories are gone, and it breaks my heart still. I mean, I'm still grieving for her. But my brother Pat, who was there a lot, and my brother Mark, who was there a lot, they have some great stories. And they have all the really, I mean, there's some crazy shit happened there. And that's why a lot of people won't talk about it, because it was a real sex and drugs and rock and roll scene.
We need the whole family there. And we're going to have just, yep. And Kate, there's no editing.
Fine by me. If they give me permission, I'm on board.
Yeah, bring the
This will definitely be the after hours content for the show.
B-side.
But definitely, Kane can post all the links that you're talking about. We'd be more than happy to help direct people to your actual homepage and get those stories written.
Yeah.
Our fans out there that know the drumstick, we want more stories to Kathy.
And they can email me too. I have rememberthedrumstick@gmail.com. That's my handle there. And yeah, email me, send me information. If you don't want to call me and I'll write the damn story up, I don't care, but I just don't want Facebook to own everything from now on. I would like the website to get some of that traffic too. And yeah, I mean, I'm nothing wrong with Facebook, mind you. It does a really interesting thing, but
Kathy, we appreciate you so much being on here. You have no idea. Like, I've opened up doors, like Randy said, like it's just opening up so many cool people and stories. And I mean, today that's all I'm going to talk about. And we're going to have just this like session of talking about this. And then Friday, they're going to just like be biting at the bit, just wanting this to come out, just to listen to this. And yeah. Kane left his DVD here. So sorry, Kane, you're never going to see that again.
That's a
or
DVD.
Randy. Is it Randy's? Anyway, you ain't going to see it again.
Be two more people. I mean, I thought there was two total that I'd be talking to. So I only brought a t-shirt, 2 t-shirts, 2 coffee mugs. But Brooks, I can get you something too.
I was just going to ask you if we could swap t-shirts. I mean, not like right now. I mean, you don't want to see my tits right now, but I'm just saying I would swap you. I love those t-shirts because it's like a drum. Is it the one with the drumstick and the guitar? Oh my God, I would love it.
Logo. That's the official logo.
Oh, I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
We'll definitely be right on the cage and getting people on to talk about the drumstick. We'll definitely have you on, and hopefully we can all kind of collaborate together when it comes to the event that you're having. I think that sounds like a blast to me. I will even skip the Iowa game that day to come out because this is more important to me. And that's a big deal. Husker fans, don't give me any crap, all right? I support you guys too. But anyways, Kathy, thank you so much for being on the show. There's so many amazing moments in this one. I got teary every time you talked about how important it is for live music and how great it is in this town. You are such an ambassador and such an amazing person. Thank you for being on the show. And for the listeners out there, this is just another tasty treat just like that chicken that they had at the drumstick that we're feeding to you. So come back next week for another awesome episode of
Scratch the Vinyl.